Today we are going through Lori Gottlieb's best-selling book, Maybe You Should Talk to Someone. This book takes us into the world of a psychotherapist in a very intimate and genuine way, revealing the hidden corners of everyone's hearts. Let's start with John's story. John is a TV writer and producer, struggling with immense work pressure and balancing his family life. He has trouble sleeping, can't get along with his wife, and feels irritated by everything around him. The therapist tries to connect with John, but he doesn't fully open up. By asking about John's smile and his clock-watching behavior, the therapist attempts to break his monologue. Despite feeling bored and yawning during John's story, the therapist hides her reactions. The therapist's self-reflection is also crucial. She realizes that John's outbursts sound familiar because she's experiencing her own pain. She recalls her breakup with her boyfriend the night before, feeling hurt and wronged. During a break between sessions, she cries, her mascara streaking down her cheeks. She acknowledges that therapists are human too, with their own pains and challenges. To better help others, she also needs therapy to address her own issues. The therapist believes John's problem is his inability to connect with people in his life. John's feelings towards his wife, Margot, come off as complaints rather than attempts to understand her. The therapist plans to help John face his issues and take responsibility. She thinks John needs to realize what he stands to lose by changing and learn to take responsibility for his current predicament before he can let go and change. Next, let's discuss presenting problems from the therapist's perspective. These are the primary issues that bring clients to therapy, such as a panic attack, job loss, death or birth, relationship troubles, or difficulty making major life decisions. Presenting problems indicate that clients are at a crossroads in life, needing to decide whether to turn left or right. Even if they choose to maintain the status quo, the therapist will guide them into unknown territory. The beginning of therapy usually involves clients sharing their stories. They're not concerned with life's crossroads. They just want relief. They start with the pressing issue and tell their story. Here's a special example: the boyfriend incident, involving a charming man whose decision shocked the client. The boyfriend is a charming man, kind, generous, funny, wise. He makes you laugh, drives to the pharmacy at 2 a.m. to get you antibiotics, and meticulously arranges syrup cans in the kitchen. He listens to your daily stories, becoming your unofficial biographer. However, he suddenly decides that for the next 10 years, he can't have children living with him. He explains he wants to be with you, but realizes he doesn't want to wait another decade for freedom as his kids are about to leave for college. The client is shocked and confused, unable to understand why he'd bring this up when their relationship is stable. She's angry at his silence and avoidance, feeling betrayed that he didn't mention this sooner. The boyfriend explains he always knew she had children, but thought he could manage, so he didn't mention it earlier. He apologizes for her anger and confusion, but insists he wants a child-free life, not a life without her. The client reflects on whether her demands are too perfect, realizing perfection is the enemy of happiness. She decides to accept his decision, but feels uncertain about their future. Therapists help people with psychological issues, and their clients are just like everyone else, including the listeners here. People often misunderstand therapy, fearing being analyzed. They might say, "Will you uncover my hidden insecurities? Will you see my vulnerability? Will you expose my lies and see my shameful side?" The author's personal experience shows that therapy isn't just simple talk, but a complex process. Therapy involves taking the first step, then the next. Major transformations often come from hundreds of small, even imperceptible steps accumulated over time. The author's Hollywood work experience involved working at a major talent agency as an assistant to a junior film agent. She learned how to craft stories and fell in love with complex, interesting characters. Later, she worked in TV development at NBC, finding writing for TV more interesting than films, but realizing she was solving the wrong problem. At that time, the only thing that seemed to matter was watching TV, because only those weekly shows could immerse her in fictional worlds and restore a moment of perception. Julie, a 33-year-old college professor, was diagnosed with cancer after her honeymoon. She faced the blows of cancer, miscarriage, and cancer recurrence during treatment. Therapists need to be genuine while protecting clients' privacy. Facing Julie's issues, the therapist considered saying she was doing yoga, but it would be a lie. When handled well, self-disclosure can bridge the gap with clients who felt alienated in past experiences, encouraging them to open up. But if shared inappropriately or centered on the therapist, it can make clients uncomfortable, causing them to close off or flee. After her breakup, the author was troubled and confused, deciding to seek a therapist's help. Finding a therapist wasn't easy. Word of mouth was the most effective method. The author found Dr. Wendell through a colleague's recommendation. In her first session with Dr. Wendell, she calmly explained she needed crisis management, a few weeks to process an unexpected breakup, just that simple. Dr. Wendell's office had no separate therapist's chair, just 2 long sofas in an L shape away from the door. Dr. Wendell was very silent during therapy, only questioning the author with his eyes. The author shared her breakup and feelings, feeling worse each day since the breakup, her life filled with blinding emptiness. Dr. Wendell asked questions to help the author explore her inner world, pointing out that her sadness stemmed from something more significant than the breakup. I wonder if your sadness is about something bigger than the breakup. The author felt pain and struggle during therapy, but also experienced some awareness. John is extremely isolated, believing intimacy to be dangerous. He verbally attacks the therapist, changes topics, and interrupts her. His phone is one of his defense mechanisms. During a session, he texted, and the therapist pointed out she felt ignored. She emphasized the importance of therapy time and addressed John's behavior. John's deep affection for Rosie, his dog, is evident. The therapist tries to connect with John's emotions. His phone rings again, but the therapist ignores it, focusing on John, trying to maintain this state and prevent him from retreating into numbness when bad feelings arise. Therapists need time to understand clients' desires, feelings, and behavior patterns. They listen, suggest, persuade, and guide, sometimes coaxing clients to see different snapshots. They help clients categorize these snapshots, revealing seemingly unrelated scenes around the same theme. Dr. Wendell's waiting room has a vintage aesthetic, with furniture smelling slightly musty. The author shares her breakup with Dr. Wendell, who points out her problem is choosing to suffer rather than accepting pain and finding meaning. He believes her issues lie in the past and future, needing to abandon fantasies about a glorious past and accept that history can't be rewritten. While working at NBC, the author was assigned to 2 upcoming TV shows, a medical drama, ER, and a sitcom, Friends. During ER research, she followed a doctor, observing procedures like lumbar punctures and internal exams, witnessing the harsh realities of medical practice. Welcome to Holland is an essay describing the experience of having expectations overturned by reality. Emily Pearl Kingsley, a mother of a child with Down syndrome, shares her journey of acceptance and finding joy in life's unexpected turns. The author tells her son, Zach, about the breakup, explaining simply that she and her boyfriend decided to part ways. Zach feels confused and sad, asking why. The author explains the reasons, teaching Zach that relationships require compromise, but too much makes marriage difficult. Zach copes by eating bananas and playing games, indicating he'll gradually adjust to life without the boyfriend. Studying gross anatomy highlights life's fragility. Professors ask students to note any emotional reactions. Observing and managing emotions become crucial during dissections, deepening understanding of life's fragility and reflecting on medical practice. The author chooses writing over medicine, but remains passionate about both. John, a 40-year-old TV writer and producer, complains about his depressed wife, disrespectful kids, and demanding colleagues. The therapist listens and helps John face his issues. By setting therapy rules and schedules, the therapist helps John establish a therapeutic relationship. The author wants a child, but faces a breakup, feeling trapped. Choosing a sperm donor online proves challenging. Finally, a suitable donor is found through a friend's recommendation, but he's low on inventory, placing her on a waiting list. Meanwhile, she seeks donors among friends, but faces rejection. Therapists should have no memory, no desire. Memories and expectations can bias therapy. Bion advises therapists to focus on the present and remain open to all outcomes. The author, struggling post-breakup, shares her pain with Dr. Wendell, seeking clarity. In supervision, therapists discuss Becca's case. Becca, 30, sought therapy a year ago due to relationship issues. Despite work success, she feels isolated and faces constant breakups. The therapist tries various methods, but Becca's situation doesn't improve. Finally, the therapist follows the group's advice and ends therapy with Becca. Holly dreams of high school friend Lisa, who no longer recognizes her. Dreams reveal fears and desires. The author dreams of becoming an old lady while her ex's new girlfriend is much younger, reflecting internal guilt and fear. The author signs a book contract, but struggles to write. She avoids reality, feeling panic, worry, guilt, and shame about the unfinished book. Finally, she decides to confront her issues and starts writing. Therapist-client interactions rely on more than visual and auditory cues. Even technical issues matter. Video calls can't replace in-person therapy, prone to interruptions. The therapist advises John to treat Margot differently, recognizing the buried love between them. The author confesses her writing struggles to Dr. Wendell, realizing her predicament is self-chosen. She needs to break free from her self-imposed limitations. Dr. Wendell uses cartoons to show her a way out, reminding her that insights are therapy's consolation prize. Julie considers becoming a blonde and decides to work at Trader Joe's for a sense of mission and community. The therapist faces a dilemma but supports her decision. Julie's experience at Trader Joe's surprises the therapist. Rita, a divorced woman with depression, regrets her wrong decisions and terrible life. Facing intense pain and despair, she seeks emergency therapy. The therapist injects vitality into Rita's life, suggesting she not give up on finding companionship. Working from home, the author's only interaction is with the delivery guy. She wants to be a psychiatrist, balancing meaningful patient interactions, writing, and family time. The dean suggests a master's in clinical psychology, leading her to grad school to learn helping others, changing her life. Years later, the delivery guy becomes her client, and he built her office bookshelf. The author and her boyfriend run into her clients Keisha and Luke at a frozen yogurt shop. Keisha, discovering Luke's infidelity, plans to leave him. To protect their privacy, the author doesn't introduce them. Her boyfriend is confused, and the author explains. Later, they discuss the encounter at the shop. Wendell shares his childhood memories of summer vacations at a lakeside cabin. Once, afraid of biking, he pretended not to want to learn, but met a girl who invited him to ride. He asked the bike shop owner for help, who taught him to ride and lent him a bike. After college, Wendell joined the family business but couldn't pretend his interest in psychology was a hobby, so he pursued a PhD. Charlotte, 25, feels anxious, bored with work, and struggles with family and social life. She's never had a serious relationship and feels dependent on therapy, wanting daily sessions. She twice interrupts therapy, but returns. Addictive behavior often stems from seeking familiarity, leading to predictable disappointment. John skips a session, leaving takeout on the chair. He complains about the salad dressing and chopsticks, calling the therapist an emotional rapist. John reveals Gabby is his son and decides to stop therapy. The therapist is puzzled and surprised by John's departure, giving him space to process his emotions. In her final year of grad school, the author completes clinical training, role-playing in class, and watching hours of videos. On her first day, her supervisor hands her files and introduces her first client, Michelle. During therapy, Michelle breaks down, and the author feels awkward and uneasy. The supervisor points out issues and offers advice. The author faces undiagnosed health issues, hiding her worries about health and writing. A neurologist diagnoses conversion disorder with real symptoms but no medical explanation. Treatment includes massages, hydrotherapy, and melatonin. She fears her symptoms are terminal and worries her boyfriend will leave her. She decides to confess her health issues to Dr. Wendell. Rita faces intense pain and despair, seeking emergency therapy. She meets Myron at the gym, starting a friendship. Myron confesses his feelings, and Rita decides to avoid him. She fears love and the growing pressure within her. Charlotte faces various problems, feeling she's experiencing karma. The therapist believes people expect others to tell them what to do, but therapists can't make life decisions for them. Charlotte struggles to understand or express her feelings, hoping the therapist will temporarily play her mother's role, offering nurturance she's never experienced. Corey believes therapists need to listen to others' problems but doesn't want to be one himself. He thinks therapy is like a haircut, needing a natural approach, and that complaints may not be real issues. The author believes therapy offers more than weekly comfort. Each person has different methods, and therapy is just one. Diagnosed with cancer, Julie undergoes multiple surgeries and miscarriages. She decides to remove fibroids and try to conceive again. If unsuccessful, she'll consider surrogacy or adoption. Julie and her husband Matt face many challenges, but support each other. She begins to cherish things she once took for granted, realizing life's preciousness. Therapists' internships are challenging, with interns accumulating case numbers. After internships, they look forward to becoming therapists. Traditional therapy methods seem outdated, with pharmaceutical companies promoting quick fixes. The speed of want reflects people's desire for speed and convenience, driven by loneliness and a need for connection. On her way to Dr. Wendell's office, the author gets soaked in the rain, wetting the couch. She feels anxious about small things, fearing risk and mistakes. Dr. Wendell believes her anxiety and fear stem from avoidance, and she decides to live more fully. John, torn about therapy, arrives late due to conflict with Margot over work and kids. They plan a scenic coastal drive instead of the highway. Gabby dies in a car accident while getting his license, and John and Margot blame each other. John's dreams reflect his guilt, and Dr. Wendell advises him to allow normal emotions and live a normal life. Change doesn't happen like the Nike slogan, "Just do it," but through a gradual process. Charlotte moves from denial to acceptance of her drinking problem, hesitates, prepares, reduces drinking, and eventually quits, working to maintain the change. Viktor Frankl, born in 1905, combined psychology and philosophy, exploring meaning in mental health. Surviving a concentration camp, he wrote, "Man's Search for Meaning." Frankl believed the primary drive isn't pleasure, but finding meaning. The author shares her father's situation in therapy, and Wendell shares his memories of his father. Rita's life feels hopeless, insisting nothing will change. Despite ongoing changes, some subtle and others profound, she begins accepting new relationships. Her kids start to accept her, and her life gains new vitality. Julie's husband Matt invites the therapist to Julie's funeral, explaining its significance. Treating Julie made the therapist more compassionate and responsible. Attending the funeral comforts the client's family. Hundreds of Julie's friends gather, and Matt shares her life and love at the service. John feels confused by Margot's accusations, questioning his actions. Using the word sometimes brings him balance, avoiding extremes. John's childhood dream of becoming a psychiatrist was thwarted by financial issues, but he realizes it now as a writer, facing new challenges. He and Margot begin couples therapy to improve their relationship. The author experiences flow while writing, seeking meaning rather than happiness. Therapy's true value lies in the special connection built during weekly sessions. She dances with Wendell, learning to let it be, and decides to end therapy. That's all for today. This book not only reveals the complexities and depth of therapy, but also shows the vulnerabilities and strengths within each of us. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.